I realized last week that I've been doing pretty good, as long as I try to just enjoy myself and not think about the past or the future at all. Well, I think about it when I do this, but this is like dumping all of my darkness into a box and then shutting it, and then I can go about the rest of my time. If you watched my first episode, I talk about trying different philosophies of living, and I guess I started with hedonism first. It's pretty much drugs and orgasms and video games right now, and that's actually working out pretty good. But I guess it isn't just hedonism, it's also kind of stoicism, because I'm doing it all in a way that doesn't make me hate myself or that doesn't hurt anyone else. And I'm doing my job, and I'm actually killing it there. And I'm making art and lifting weights regularly, so I guess I'm doing all the things I said I would. I'm still trying to figure out if it's worth it, the ratio of good to bad. And I guess that's why I'm doing this project. But lately my existential crisis has felt more intellectual than internal, like the debilitating depression that went along with it has passed. And maybe I can make the decision to live or not to live more rationally, logically, than I could before when I was deep in it. Recently, I was playing VR, and I was thinking, this is actually fun. This is actually fun now. A few months ago, I was playing VR, but I wasn't having fun at all. Like, I've been playing Supernatural VR, and I know it is objectively an amazing game. The choreography is incredible, and it really feels like dancing, and I love dancing. Dancing always made me feel better when I was sad. And I was like, how can I be depressed in a world with VR this good? But I wasn't enjoying it. I was doing it for some cardio. One time I actually cried while I was playing it because a song came on that made me sad, and I skipped it, but then another song came on that made me sad, and you can only skip one song in a set, so I just finished the set while crying. But last Monday, my dad died, and I'm having way more of a meltdown about it than I expected. I was just saying recently that I'm not really connected to most of my family, except for my sister and her children and husband. She's 15 years older than me, and she's my half sister, and she doesn't have my bloodline's longevity genes. Most of the people on my father's side, they make it to about 90. So I think about how someday I'm going to lose her, and I'm going to be a fucking mess. But outside of her and my nieces, I couldn't think of another family member whose death would really affect me. But here I am, seriously grieving for my father, and I'm not sure why. He really wanted to die. He has been very vocal about that for the last 20 years, and he wasn't even a good father. I told my friend that, and he said, well, that's pretty sad by itself. And he died of stupidity and neglect. And now I have to deal regularly with the person that let him die. I fucking hate her, and I'd be even more furious with her and with myself for not pushing her hard enough if I thought he had any will to live at all, which he did not. His girlfriend is a moron. That's not just me being mean, it's a diagnosis. Well, it's a diagnosis from a layperson who is also being mean. Anyway, but she really is very fucking stupid, and she's afraid to take any action, and her inaction got him killed. About 4 months ago, I started spending most of my time at my family's house in New Jersey, which is about an hour away from him, so I could be closer to him. I'm also kind of directionless at the moment. I can pretty much do anything or be anywhere right now. I work remote. But I've been here in New Jersey for the winter instead of a co-work in Thailand or something, so I could get his shit sorted first. I didn't want to be his primary care person or anything. I just wanted to coordinate his care. Everyone is surprised how old my dad is, but he had me pretty late. And his girlfriend is about 10 years younger than him, and I am grateful. I am grateful that she has taken care of him for so long. But his condition was at the point where it was clearly too much for her. I tried to step in and get him help, like a geriatric specialist, maybe a therapist, at least a home aide, figure out what there is to do in a case like his. Apparently, his current doctor, when my dad complains about something, is like, well, he's old. That's not a fucking diagnosis. I wanted to get him assessed for dementia, but he was partially blind and partially deaf, and it wasn't just volume, it was distortion, which must be really frustrating and scary. I listened to some recordings of what they think that sounds like, and it's pretty awful. Also, English is his second language. All of this makes it very hard for anyone to communicate with him, to find out what his needs or wants are. But even if I could communicate with him, I know what he would say. He would say fuck off and let me die. Well, he probably wouldn't say fuck off, but that would be the sentiment. In any case, she blocked everything I tried to do. She wanted 2 weeks' notice to even see him. She wouldn't even let me send someone to help with the housework. They were living in filth. They smelled like piss and body odor all the time. And they were not poor. They just acted like they were. They could afford all of the help they needed. For a long time, he has just existed. He would just sit up, lie down, maybe eat or drink something, most often not, repeat. No stimulation at all. And I don't think, even if he was in his right mind, that he would have done anything differently himself, which presented a tough moral question. How much do I force care on someone who is not capable of making his own decisions anymore, when I know what his decisions would have been? I tried to get her to take him to the hospital a few weeks ago. He was complaining and saying his head hurt and that he was dying. But that is kind of typical dad talk, maybe a little more extreme than the usual. I kept asking about him, but she wouldn't return my calls or texts, and when she finally did, it was to say that he was a little better, that he ate a little bit that day. When she finally decided it was time to take him to the hospital, she waited for a friend to come over to change his clothes first. She also wanted to have him shaved, but they didn't get that far. I got a call from the EMT when he was at the house. It was so mishandled. First, he wanted to know if I wanted to override the DNR. Why is that even a thing? He said it's just a piece of paper. Great to know that the most important decision a person can make, whether to live or die, is not really his to make. I've been meaning to revise my own living will, which still gives my ex the right to make medical decisions for me, but also doesn't even allow him to terminate my life. The rationale behind that is complicated, but the short of it is, I used to be an I want to live forever person. I used to say that I'd rather be a brain in a tank than not be at all. Clearly, if you're here, you already know that's not how I feel anymore. So I guess I need to call my lawyer, but I'm not sure if it even matters. So the EMT told me that they started CPR before they realized he had a DNR. I asked if they actually had the paperwork, were they looking at it, and they said yes. The very same paperwork I've been trying to get his girlfriend to give me for weeks so I can get him help, which she couldn't get for me, but somehow managed to pull out of her ass during the minute he was dying. So the EMT wanted to know if he should continue to treat him. She didn't want to make that decision, so she had them call me. I said, no, those are his wishes. You're looking at them. I figured the only reason he hadn't killed himself in the last 20 years was that he was at least a little religious and scared of going to hell or something, so just let him die. He's been suffering for so long, it would be cruel to keep him alive. But then the EMT said something that implied he was already dead. I don't remember exactly what gave me that idea, but I asked him, wait, is he dead? And he said yes. Now, this conversation was so confusing, and I wasn't at my best either, and I made him explain everything twice up until this point. So I was like, okay, we've been talking for a while. You've been doing CPR for how long? Wouldn't he be brain dead by now? Why are we even having this conversation? And then he said, well, he wasn't really dead. They were artificially keeping him alive. Well, that's not the same fucking thing. Oh my God. So while we were talking, his heart started beating again by itself. So he was like, okay, now we're going to have a different conversation. Should we continue to treat him? And while we were having that conversation, his heart stopped beating again. And I was like, just stop. Just stop. Stop. You know, I used to be afraid of both getting old and dying. But lately I've just been afraid of getting old, and this really reinforced that. Like I said, I'd be a lot angrier at that woman, at that med tech, and at myself if I didn't know how much he wanted to die, how much he was merely existing, not living. But still, that is no way to spend the end of your life, in filth, miserable, neglected. Even if he was a stubborn asshole that wouldn't have chosen anything better for himself even if he could. He's better off, people say. And I kind of agree, but how can you be better off when you are nothing? Maybe I am still a transhumanist at heart. So, the other day I was playing VR and crying again. And it wasn't even because there was a song on that made me sad. He didn't want a memorial. He wasn't capable of understanding that a memorial isn't for him. It's for us. It's for people to be able to grieve him properly. I don't think he ever got past the toddler phase of egocentrism. He didn't really have any kind of understanding of philosophy or psychology. I think he thought all people were the same, with the same wants and needs. It wasn't malicious. I don't think it was. It was just really ignorant. He also didn't see any need to try to be happy, or that being happy is different for different people and requires different things. So here's the eulogy. I'm not going to say anywhere but here. My dad was the most stubborn person I've ever met. I think we would all agree that was his defining quality. One of my mother's dad-based insults was, "You have a thick head like your father." I thought it was very on brand when he got a titanium skull. He was also selfish. These things together, he wanted what he wanted when he wanted it, and there was no arguing with him about it. Well, you could argue, but you would never get anywhere. But I think he loved the people in his life, even if it was a funny kind of love where he always thought he knew what was best for them. He was charming and had a great sense of humor and was surprisingly sweet at times. He tried to put money in my hand like I was a child. He never stopped doing that. I think the first time I won that argument was on his last birthday. I was like, no way. And I was so proud of myself that I won. I remember one of the times I didn't a long time ago, and I thought, okay, if he's going to treat me like a child, then I'm going to act like one. And I went out and bought a bunch of video games. He he was a hard worker and incredibly skilled, just like all of his sisters and brothers. I tell the story often that he told me about how he went to Rome and picked out his own apprentice master when he wasn't even a teenager yet, because he wanted the best and he wanted to be the best. When my dad fixed my shoes and what he could do with something I broke so badly was amazing. I would show them off to my friends at any opportunity, and I would say, my dad did this. When you don't when you don't get to see someone as often as you like, I guess the nice thing about that is that it is more likely that your last words to each other are, I love you.